Hello, my friends. Today is starting with some very bad news from the front lines. First off, Russian forces have now reached the Dnipropetrovsk region. Russian war correspondents report that their troops have reached the administrative border of Dnipropetrovsk region and have even published photos showing a Russian flag next to a barbed wire fence. According to cartographers, there has been a recorded advance toward Novomykolaivka, which is only about 1 kilometer 500 meters from the regional border. The Ukrainian side has started denying this information, but unfortunately, there is already confirmation on the map showing that the Russians have indeed made progress there. We'll discuss this advance in more detail a bit later. Now, let's turn immediately to the border area because major battles are likely to break out there soon. Just yesterday, Putin began laying the groundwork in the information space to justify creating a buffer zone. During a meeting between the Russian president and officials from the Kursk region, one of the local leaders said that Russians can't live like they are on a peninsula. He added, "We need more territory, at least Sumy," referring to a Ukrainian city. Putin didn't push back, he just joked in response. "That's why we picked Alexander Yevseevich. He wants more territory too." On top of that, there was a statement yesterday indicating that Russia is concentrating troops at the border, most likely in preparation for offensive operations in the Kharkiv direction and possibly toward Sumy as well. For now, no one knows for sure, but all of this points to one thing: Putin has no intention of stopping anytime soon. Even if negotiations do begin, Russia will likely drag them out while continuing military operations. So, unfortunately, we have to face the fact that despite Trump's claims about a positive call with Putin, the reality is very different. The war is still ongoing. For now, there is no significant Russian activity in the Sumy or Kursk regions, and they haven't even managed to fully push Ukrainian forces off Russian territory. However, new Russian troops are being concentrated separately, and a breakthrough could begin in a different location. In addition, the Russians are actively shelling the city of Sumy, but so far there have been no changes along the front line. In the Kharkiv direction, the situation also remains stable with no new Russian attacks reported. Still, there is a possibility they could try to advance here in order to expand the territory they control toward Kharkiv. The big question now is where exactly the Russians will strike next. Fighting continues in Vovchansk, although for now the situation there remains unchanged. And today, once again, Rubio made it clear that they're afraid to call Putin a war criminal, impose real sanctions on Russia, or defeat them on the battlefield.
Vladimir Putin, is he a war criminal?
Well, I think you can look at instances that have happened there and certainly characterize them as war crimes, but our intent is to end the war.
Is he a war criminal?
We can't end the war without talking to
No,
Mr.
that's
Putin.
pretty simple. Is he a war criminal?
Well, that's
this man we're negotiating with, Vladimir Putin. Is he a war criminal? That's not tough.
What? I'm trying to answer your question by telling you that we're trying to end the war here.
Go ahead.
No, it's not a simple answer.
You are equivocating, sir. Just answer the question.
I'm answering your question, and the answer is that war crimes have been committed, no doubt. And who's responsible for that? There will be time and place for that accountability. But right now, the job is to end the war.
So you won't answer the question.
If we don't end the war, people are going to get
reclaiming
killed.
my time, sir. Let me go on.
So, as we can see, they are clearly afraid to officially call Putin a war criminal. Friends, be sure to share your thoughts in the comments. Also, US Representative Ted Lieu called on Rubio to defeat Russia on the battlefield.
Trying to end the war so that more people don't die.
Thank you. And trying to end the war, right before his conversation with Trump recently, he launched a bunch of missiles, killed a bunch of civilians. So clearly, Putin is giving the middle finger to you and to the press.
Meanwhile, Trump continues to mock Zelensky.
I called Zelensky, and they said, he's in South Africa. I said, what the hell is he doing in South Africa?
He was talking to
We
us.
got this straight. That's a strange one. I said, what are you doing in South Africa?
Yes.
That's a strange one.
He's trying to make peace.
As you can see, Trump continues his clone show, now thinking he's some kind of great president and while being afraid of Putin. Trump also commented today on the fact that he didn't impose sanctions on Russia. That'll be my decision, not someone else. We're in a pretty critical time right now. As you know, I had a 2.5 hour conversation with President Putin. And while it's all still just talk, Putin is building up troops along the border. So, friends, drop your thoughts in the comments. And now let's move straight to the most difficult directions as of today. We'll start with Chasiv Yar. Here, the Russians are ramping up the activity and trying to break through into Chasiv Yar, the assaulting Predtechene, pushing toward Bila Hora, attempting advances near Kurdyumivka and storming Deliivka. So far, they haven't made any gains in the past 24 hours, but it's clear they are putting pressure on the front to break through to Kostyantynivka. In the Kostyantynivka direction itself, assaults continue near Yablonivka as well as on Novospassky and Sherbynivka. Shelling continues around Zorya, and although no new assaults have been reported there yet, the situation is extremely dynamic and attacks could resume soon. The situation is extremely tough, but the Ukrainian forces are holding the line and not retreating despite being nearly encircled, and considering the entire area is now under constant attack from FPV drones, it's nothing short of hell. In the Pokrovsk direction, the Russians are assaulting Shevchenko Pershe, Mirolubivka, the village of Prominy, Lysivka, and are trying to break through near Zvirova. They are also storming Udachne and Novosergievka. So far, there have been no changes of the past day, but the level of activity remains very high and shelling hasn't stopped. And today, very bad news is coming from the Novopavlivka direction. The Russians have managed to make a significant advance past Kotlярivka and have come right up to the villages of Muravka and Novomykolaivka. The breakthrough by the Russians was 3 kilometers, 300 meters, and they've essentially reached the Dnipropetrovsk region. Only a few positions in the fields remain between them and the regional border at a distance of about 1 kilometer, 300 meters. But already, yesterday evening, the Russians published photos showing their presence at the border of the Dnipropetrovsk region. This once again confirms that there are no proper defensive lines in that area. They managed to cross the territory and take staged photos. Of course, according to Ukrainian sources, they were later destroyed by FPV drones, but the fact of the breakthrough unfortunately stands. Ukrainian fighters also confirmed that the Russians have made gains here. Regarding the entry of the Russians into Novomykolaivka in the Pokrovsk direction, which is on the administrative border of the Dnipropetrovsk region. Yesterday, the Russians managed to reach the outskirts of the village with two groups and take several positions. They tried to bring in reinforcements by vehicle, but it and the Russian personnel were destroyed. There is no exact information on the location or number of Russian forces in this area, but it's highly likely that they will try to dig in and build on their success. The situation in this direction is currently very difficult. Today, assaults also continue on Troitske. They are pushing toward Oleksiivka, and there is fighting for Bohatyr and Odradne. The Russians are also actively shelling rear positions. Clearly, the level of activity here is extremely high. Ukrainian forces also report that in the Pokrovsk direction, all logistics are at the Russian control. Ukrainian logistics in the Pokrovsk direction have essentially been reduced to zero, which could lead to a rapid collapse of the city's defenses. As of now, it's critical for the top command to finally take this into account and focus efforts on eliminating Russian drone crews. Despite constant orders to destroy infantry, FPV drone operators are often overlooked, even though they carry out half Russian ground missions. The threat of encirclement is increasing. The situation in Kostyantynivka, Donetsk region, is critical. Russian forces are dropping at least 10 glide bombs per day, and all roads into the city are under Russian FPV drone control. The city holds major strategic importance as it's the last defensive line before Kramatorsk and Slovyansk, two neighboring cities that form a large area hub with headquarters and logistics. In the Velyka Novosilka direction, the Russians are assaulting the village of Vesele, attempting a breakthrough in the Burlatsky area, and launching attacks on Vilnepole and Zelenepole. Shelling continues, but over the past day there have been no new changes, and the Ukrainian forces have so far managed to hold the line. In the Huliaipole direction, the Russians are also increasing their activity and attempting to break through toward Malinivka and the village of Vysoke. They haven't made any gains over the past day, but the attacks continue. In the Zaporizhzhia direction, the Russians are assaulting Novoandriivka and Mali-Sherbaki, but so far all attacks have been repelled and the front line has remained unchanged over the past day. In the Kherson direction, the Russians are attempting breakthroughs on the islands and are shelling Kherson. However, as before, they haven't achieved any significant gains and the front line remains stable. Now moving to the Siversk direction. Here, the Russians continue the attacks on Bilohorivka, but they have made no new gains and the front line has remained unchanged over the past day. In the Lyman direction, the Russians are pushing near Troitske, Torske, and assaulting Yampolivka, Zelena Dolina, Ritko Dub, Novy Mir, and Druzhelubivka. However, the situation here also remains stable for now, with no changes along the front line, as all attacks have been successfully repelled. In the Borova direction, the Russians are assaulting Nova Krugliakivka and Kopanki, but activity remains minimal for now and the front line is unchanged. In the Kupiansk direction, things are completely quiet. No new assaults have been recorded in the past day, though shelling continues. However, this hasn't resulted in any changes along the front line. In the Dvorichna direction, the Russians are trying to break through the border and are assaulting the village of Stroivka. So far, they have made no gains and the front line remains unchanged. And that's all from me. So please don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell to stay updated on all the latest news. Thank you for watching and see you next time. Bye bye.